Good afternoon, Renegades. Good morning, depending on where you're at. What's going on? It is Thursday, the 28th of April, and we're coming at you live today from our Vanau studios, which are still under construction, but moving along. Finally, we're finally getting some room there, and we're broadcasting live to Facebook, to YouTube, and also to our Renegades community. So I just want to give a quick shout out to our Renegades and the Renegade community. And I'll give you, which is where we talk about all sorts of topics for breaking free from the system, paying less tax, and living anywhere in the world that you want. So we have a free community there. You can join at the link you see below. And we broadcast live there. We also have exclusive live stream content, other exclusive content as well. So speaking, before I get too far into it, speaking of being kind of under construction, and I was just reading today one of the manuals. We're installing a whole bunch of appliances, and I was reading a manual today for a microwave that we're installing. So it's a built-in microwave, and so it's got a manual, and there's only a couple buttons on this thing, so it's a little bit confusing to get just try to figure out how to use it. And the manual itself was about 14 pages long. So you got 1 or 2 pages of copyright information and a table of contents. And then you got a couple pages on how to use it. I think there was like 2 or 3 pages on how to use it, and another 2 or 3 pages on how to actually install it and mount it in and make sure that it's all safe. And there were 4 pages plus about half of almost every page that was dedicated to safety information. And I thought, as I was reading this, I was just reading through this stuff, and it's all safety information, like don't let babies operate your microwave. If they're the age of 8, they had the cutoff at 8. Where they came up with 8, I don't know. But when they turn 8, you're then allowed to use the microwave, but only if you use it under parental supervision. And when you're using the microwave, you're not supposed to dock to the door, because apparently you're smart enough to dock to the door, but dumb enough to not know this. But you can't dock to the door so that it will operate with the door open, because you could get radiation. And when you put stuff in the microwave and you cook it and it's boiling, be very careful when you take it out, because it's going to be hot. And don't cut the trim off the microwave, the rubber around the microwave door, because then it'll have a bad seal. Like, it was just this ridiculous thing, and that's fine. I mean, we're used to that. We know plastic bags. I saw the other day that same thing with one of the plastic bags, and something we unpacked with a picture of putting the plastic bag over a baby's head, and then with the line, the no smoking line through it, like, don't put this bag over your baby's head. And it's absolutely insane that we live in this society where we have to give so many of these warnings, because people just can't seem to grasp that, you shouldn't do stupid things. But what I found even funnier about this is that we live in this society, and it's so litigious that we need 4 pages of warning to keep us safe. But if somebody questions a medical procedure, or questions what you want to inject in your body, for example, then all of a sudden you're labeled a conspiracy theory. Or if you want to know more about whether it be side effects, procedures, or anything else, you want to ask any questions at all, maybe look at warnings, then you're anti-science or you're a conspiracy theorist. And I just thought, what a parallel of a society that we live in. And today we're going to be kind of talking about something really similar to that, about information and disinformation specifically, and just how people are programmed to not think for themselves, and all the thinking is supposed to be done for us. Anyway, with that, welcome back to Renegade News, and we'll just dive right into it. I'm still kind of figuring out where things are here. Like I said, as I said, we're under construction, so none of my buttons are exactly where I thought they should be, but we're going to kind of make this work anyway. So Do you remember the book 1984? I think at this point, everybody's heard of 1984. Not everybody's read it, unfortunately. I think it should be required reading for everybody. But in 1984, there was what was called the Ministry of Truth. And according to this book, the branch of the government called the Ministry of Truth, which was one of the most important branches of government in the book, they're devoted to making propaganda, to changing historical records, and creating media for education and entertainment. So they create all the education, they create all the entertainment. That's news, text, films. All these images are being created, altered, and destroyed according to what is best according to Big Brother. And the goal of the Ministry of Truth is to make sure and make it look like Big Brother is always right, and no matter what they do. Well, so today I woke up to read about something very similar in the States called the Disinformation Governance Team, which is a new team or branch of the government that's being set up by the Department of Homeland Security. And it's being set up in order to combat what they're calling disinformation. And this new task force that's being headed up by Nita Jankowicz is designed to combat online disinformation. That's their stated goal. But what is disinformation? Like, what are we talking about here? Well, for example, according to Nina, this misinformation that they're talking about are things like the Hunter Biden laptop story. That was considered misinformation. And now, several months after the election, we know that appears to be true. It's no longer considered disinformation, but at the time it was, because obviously it could mess with the election results, what they want. And the thing with Nina, with Miss Nina, is she goes well beyond that, because she's been a vocal critic of the First Amendment, which is the right to free speech. So this is somebody who doesn't believe in free speech at all, and also believes that the government should be controlling what information is considered true and what information is considered false, what is disinformation. And I mean, the problem with disinformation in general is that so much of it is in the eye of the beholder. If you look at just your typical left-right paradigm, what is truth? What is not truth? The left obviously believes that one thing is true. The right obviously believes something else is true. So that means who's ever in control of the government, they're really the ones who are going to be determining what is considered true or disinformation. If you're a Christian, for example, you believe that the Bible is truth. If you're, not to throw out many controversial things, but if you're pro-abortion or pro-choice, you may believe that a baby is not a human until the moment that it's born. Others believe that it's a baby at conception. I'm sure the truth probably comes somewhere in the middle, but everybody's truth is different. And now you have a department of government that has the power to decide what is actual truth and what the truth is. And this is absolutely terrifying. I mean, her entire plan, the plan of this entire department, is to go through the internet scouring for anything that they consider to be this disinformation, anything that goes truth, anything that they disagree with truth, that doesn't agree with their truth, is now becoming this illegal information. And I mean, as libertarians and conservatives already know, it was already very difficult to find alternative opinions on anything, whether it be the election, whether it be on politics, whether it be on medical information, because big tech was already self-censoring themselves and self-censoring what they let out to the public. And this, I mean, obviously we've been talking about this for years, the amount of censorship that's going on in big tech because of the censorship. And now, rather than just having this big tech censorship, now we have a branch of government, a really big, scary branch, being the Department of Homeland Security, who's in charge of deciding what is law. Now, knowing what this is, knowing just, even ignoring what I've just said, what they say themselves, they're a department of the government that's meant to be devoted to combating misinformation online. Now, listen to the definition of the Ministry of Truth that I read just a moment ago, what that department did. This is in 1984. Excellent book. Totally recommend reading it if you haven't. But this branch of government is devoted to making propaganda, changing historical records, like scouring through the internet and marking things as false, changing and creating media for education and entertainment. Like we don't have enough propaganda in our media and entertainment already. That includes things like news, text, films, and images that are all being created and altered and destroyed according to what is best for Big Brother. Now, they haven't admitted to creating records, I guess, but they are saying that they're going to destroy anything that they think is misinformation. So that's pretty much just as bad. Like really, if they're deleting anything that doesn't fit into their truth, why is that any worse than creating records on their own? You still have full control over what is considered the truth, and now you have people in government, in the state, who have the ability to control what is true and what is false based on their own beliefs. And to me, that's probably the most terrifying vision of the future that I can really ever imagine. So what is really interesting about this whole fact and this whole release within the last couple of days of this new department is that we're just hearing about it now, 2 days after we heard about Elon Musk buying Twitter and the deal actually going through. And I have my own thoughts about Elon Musk, and I'm still kind of trying to form them. Sometimes I love what he says. Other times I'm not so sure. He's a little bit more status that I can probably support completely, but I do like what he says about free speech. And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that today. But with this purchase of Twitter going on, the left is starting to completely melt down. It's going, it's starting to go crazy. There's all you have to do is spend 5 minutes on social media, and you can see that the left is going crazy. There's a few jokes about putting Coca-Cola, putting the cocaine back into Coca-Cola. What was really interesting is, buy women and put sugar, spice, and everything nice back in, and buy the Federal Reserve and get out of the gold. So there's some comedy stuff, but there's also these meltdowns about how he should, rather than buying Twitter, he should be ending world hunger. Well, anybody who knows, he offered to do that. The UN didn't supply. It was kind of a joke because there's no way that he could have cured world hunger for that. But it's like, well, use your money for that. Nobody seems to have a problem with, using their money for other, the government blowing money. But all of a sudden, Elon Musk uses his own money. They're melting down about it. And all the people who are freaking out. I love this one because all the people who drive Teslas, all the people who just love this high energy car, specifically the left, the progressive movements, they're the ones who are freaking out about him buying Twitter and having control over this, which is just hysterical. The jokes just kind of go on and on and on, and I don't know. They just really make me laugh. Some of them are better than others. I just love this one. Elon Musk introduces a new CEO and the left melting down. I mean, does it get any better than this? What I just talked about, you spend 54 trillion of your money. The government spends 54 trillion of money. Nobody says boo, but he spends $44 billion only of his own money. And why didn't you end world hunger? The whole world just melts down. It's, people saying how his acquisition of Twitter will probably suck for women. Like the only people who care about free speech are white supremacists and misogynists. We're the only ones, they're the only ones who care about free speech. And automatically, if you believe in free speech, then you're a misogynist or you're a racist or whatever. Like, that's the attitude. And that's already causing, people to leave. People are cutting off their accounts. There was some actress the other day, I commented on some posts about she just sent out her last tweet because it's going to become a place where they hate women or something. And it's an absolute total meltdown as to what's going on. And the whole thing to me is just silly because, the left used to be this anti-establishment ideology. They used to be against the man and all that, but they've come back full circle, and now they support everything that the government says, especially if it's a leftist government, of course. But the big thing is they absolutely hate our right to have free speech. Like, it short circuits their mind to think that people could actually say what they want, even though, every free speech advocate I know, I don't know any of them who are racist. I don't know any of them who are misogynist. But automatically, if you don't want somebody censoring other people's speeches, that's exactly what you're looking for. That's, like I said, there's this attitude coming from the left that the only reason you could possibly want free speech is if you want to be a racist, you want to be misogynist, you want to pass on pass on disinformation and lies, as opposed to alternative information that very well could end up being the truth. And to me, the most terrifying thing is that, I've really already stated it, that you now have a branch of the government that has full control over what is true and what is false, based on their own interpretation, based on their own ideology. And right now, there's an administration in power. And, I'm not a fan of really any governments, and I don't like the government having too much power for any of them. But the particular administration that's in control today is so much worse, in my opinion, especially on certain topics like this. And the left in general, so the progressive left, that whole ideology is so completely out of touch with what any freedom-loving people would imagine for life to be. Here's a very typical example, something that happened really recently. You've heard that there was a federal judge. They overruled President Biden's mask mandate. She says that they're illegal. She called the mandate unlawful and vacated the requirement, writing, "Because our system does not permit agencies to act unlawfully, even in the pursuit of desirable ends. The court declares unlawful and vacates the mask mandates." So essentially what she's saying is that even if the means, the end justifies the means, we can't make laws and mandates to do that. The left has the absolute opposite opinion of that. They believe that any means could justify any ends could justify any means that they could use to do it. And obviously, this law passing was a win for liberty-loving Americans everywhere, and finding that this ruling was unconstitutional. And now that the numbers are dwindling anyway, for whatever reasons, they really don't have that public health excuse anymore either. But the left is melting down about this as well. There's actual Facebook groups, like there's groups that are called on Facebook, "This is why I'm still wearing a mask, and I still wear a mask because," and that's fine. I support anybody's right to wear their mask anytime if they want to. But, you're getting comments like, "So the worst experience you've had so far." Mine is going to Costco. Of course, they've changed the rules now. And Chad and I both noticed there were a ton of older white men, of course. Sorry. Chad and I both noticed there were a ton of older white men without masks. And I'm imagining the smug look on their faces. We're both vaccinated, but kept our masks on anywhere there are a bunch of people. And another comment, right at the start, got boxed in a frozen food aisle by 2 masked employees and 2 older men with no masks who thought that the stopping right behind me to catch up with it was a good idea, till I yelled at everyone to back off. The 2 old men were clueless. And another, I did have a good experience yesterday at Les Schwab, though. Well, most of the patrons and employees were not masked. The person who helped me at the counter was double masked and was extra nice to me because I was also double masked. And another one was, the person bringing my groceries out at NS last week, no mask, got mad when I said something about it, said I was extremely rude at the next pickup and spite packed my groceries so there was something heavy on top of the fragile items. So basically accusing the bagger of bagging things incorrectly because they had a different policy on their mask wearing. So getting back to our original topic, that's kind of the mind of where these, non-freedom lovers are at. They don't want you to have any freedom, and they don't want you to have, that includes the freedom of speech. This leftist sort of mindset has this idea that we can regulate collective society, we can make the collective society better, but we have to regulate everything. And that includes what you do, what you say online. And really, when it comes down to it, thought, and getting back to 1984, that's our thought police. That's really the stated goal of the statist leftist progressive attitude to control everything, to control every aspect of your life, to control your actions, your thoughts, your speech, to regulate everything into this complete utopia existence that some people believe is possible, but only if we all conform exactly and essentially become drones, non-thinking drones who follow orders, do what we're told, and live inside of these boxes that they want to create for everyone. Obviously, the elites on the left, they want to create these boxes for everybody but themselves, but it's the same approach. They want everybody to live in a bubble and not have control over their lives. And so, speaking of disinformation and what I think is disinformation out there is really the dumbest thing that you can do with your money. So this is something I read on BuzzFeed this week, and it was talking about the dumbest things that you can do with your money. And like some of the first 6 were, somebody bought $50 worth of Beanie Babies because she thought they would be worth something. And another one said that my partner went out to buy vegetables for dinner and came home with a kayak. He forgot that the vegetables in the kayak was never used. And another person decided that they would go to grad school 5 years after graduating for no other reason than they have no other clue what to do with their life. And yeah, these are some pretty dumb ways to spend your money. This one person was 17 and they had only saved up $2,000 from work. So they chose to spend all this on a double neck guitar. And another person traded a rather rare volume into a local used bookstore because he had 2 of them. Then he went back to the bookstore a month later and excitedly bought back his own book because it was rare and he didn't think that he owned it, but he was wrong. And one of the other winners in the top 6 was they bought a onesie for their Great Dane. And she doesn't know why he bought it, but she thought the Great Dane liked it. As a dog lover myself, I can almost guarantee that the Great Dane did not, but that's a whole other side. And this is all disinformation. None of these really are the dumbest things that you can spend your money on. Let me first ask you this. Have you ever done anything to reduce what your greatest expense is? Think about that for just a second. What is your greatest expense and what are you doing about it? No, your greatest expense isn't your mortgage, and it's not your insurance, and it's not even your car payment. The biggest expense that you have in your life is, at least for most people, is taxes. And the thing with taxes is it's really dumb, a dumb place to spend your money first, because you give the government your taxes before you even get paid yourself. And for most people, those taxes are taken out before you even see your paycheck. And if you understand taxes and how they work and how they're used and how you could better utilize that money that's actually being dumped into taxes every year, you could find that you own the key to the pathway to great wealth just by controlling that and by understanding the different lines in the tax code. That tax money could be the difference between not living your best life and living your best life with great wealth. So that's why I think that paying tax is really the stupidest thing that you can do with your money. Now, I would never ever recommend that you do anything illegal to evade them. And that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm not talking about just stopping paying your taxes. I'm not even talking about what they would do with the roads, although we can go there. And like I said, I'm certainly not talking about evading taxes. But there are legal things that you could do to reduce your taxes every year, or even legally eliminate them. And they are legal things. And every person, every business, I believe, has a personal right and really a responsibility to the world because of what you can do with all the good you can do with that money by reducing those taxes as much as possible. So that is why I recommend that you join and subscribe to Renegade News right now, because on our channel, within our private communities, we talk about legal and always legal. That is extremely important to me. We talk about legal strategies and secrets for breaking free from the system, paying less tax, and living anywhere in the world that you want. So I recommend you join that, and I'm going to see you next time on Renegade News Live.